the daughter's name is Shelta.
Oh, okay.
They named the cave after his daughter. And they got a...
All right, so I'm Bob Roth, newly librarian of the NSS, and I'm here with Bill Torode, the real librarian of the NSS. So Bill, we talked before about Tumble Rock being your #1 cave, but I'm more interested in talking about Shelta Cave, which was actually your #2 cave that you ever visited.
Yeah, I first visited the cave back in the fall of 1959 when I first started caving. I was still in high school. And I guess being right here in town, you know, you think, well, where are we going? We're not going anywhere. We're right, it's right down the street. So we came, a group of us came over here and went on down into the cave to see what was there. And the water level in the cave was up pretty high. And so we walked down to the edge of the lake, which is more than half the cave at that time. And the land part was not as great as the lake part. And so there really wasn't much to see. We kind of just came down and looked at the crayfish and the fish in the water. There were quite a few of those at that time. There's not as many today.
Now that was pre the NSS moving to Huntsville, correct?
Oh yes, yeah. The NSS didn't move till '71.
And that's when they bought the property on Cave Avenue?
Yeah, the building.
Yes.
They bought Shelta Cave in '68.
Okay.
And but in around '66, I started to map the cave, and it's big rooms, and so it was kind of one of my earliest mapping projects, and the big rooms are sort of difficult to map, you know, make them look right. So
how much footage did Shelta end up having?
Well, what we've done is we just sort of measured a straight line through the middle of the cave, and it's 2,500 feet from one end to the other, just walking in a straight line. But there's lots of little side nooks and some crawlways and things that would, if you were to add all that up, it would be considerably more. It's difficult to get a length on a big room. So anyhow, we started surveying the cave in '66, and we could only survey the land part. We really weren't prepared to any equipment to get into the water. But we knew, well, in '66 the water had gone down. It was the first year the first time I went in '59. And the water level was up. There wasn't much cave to see. We didn't really spend much time in the cave. And one of our members, Dick Mitchell, he was stationed in the military, and he came and visited the cave on his own, and the water level had dropped considerably. And when he came back and talked with the grotto members, he said, well, that's a really, really big cave. You guys need to go see that. So we kind of, being that the cave was dry, we got down in there and we thought, well, this would be a good time to map the cave. And so
And I take it the current maps that you have in front of us show the difference between the wet season and the dry season?
Yes, we did different maps for the different water levels, and that in '66 we were able to map the big room itself, the biggest room in the cave. It's 3 football fields side by side. It's sort of roughly diamond shaped, and it's 800 feet the long ways on the diamond and 400 feet in the short width of the diamond. And so after we got that big room mapped, we had a lot of rain, and the water came up in the cave, and that cut us off from the other rooms, and we didn't have access to those. And we were hoping to get back into the cave the next year, but in '67 the water, we had the whole year was wet, and the water stayed up, and we weren't able to get into the other parts of the cave. But in '68 the water did go back down to the level it was in '66, and so we kind of hurried up and got back in there and got the rest of the cave mapped. And John Cooper was working on his thesis in the cave, the crayfish, and that the cave property came up for sale. And John talked to, he was staying with Walter B. Jones, who's a retired state geologist, and Walter B. was the one that actually said, we've got to buy that cave and save it. So they started, Cooper was an officer in the NSS, and he promoted the NSS to buy the cave, and so they eventually they did, and it was quite a little bit of an arduous detail of going through a bunch of things to get it, but we finally did get the cave, and then eventually the people that owned a church next door wanted to buy part of our property, and we weren't able to sell that to them, and so they turned around and asked us if we were interested in their building. And one of our members, Jim Johnson, said that he was on the board, and he said, well, we have a fund set up to buy an office, but nobody's promoted that. And so he went ahead and took some pictures of the building and went to a board meeting and put it up that this building was for sale right next to Shelta Cave, and wouldn't that be great? And eventually everybody thought that would be great, and they went ahead and bought it. This one has all the names and stuff on it. The Bat Lake here. Ed Miller's room. Ed Miller was very instrumental in donating money to purchase the land, and actually I think he had something to do with buying this place. He's still around. I mean, we're talking '66 here for him donating money to buy this, or '68. And then Tom Johnson, we wouldn't have this without Tom Johnson.
Bill, I always heard if you were desperate, you peed in your light and you drank your water.
You had to be real desperate.